Who says no to $1 million contract, especially when you're getting started?
I'm joined today by Paul, co-founder and CEO of Supabase. If you don't know Supabase, it's a tool that helps you build in the weekend, scale to millions.
Slowly, you'll make a lot of money, but over time, your growth tails off. It's kind of like the point of no return has already passed.
How did Supabase earn the trust of over 3 million developers?
This became like rule number one, don't kill the channel. You trade cash for culture, basically.
Enjoy the episode.
Next year, we'll be flying 200 people to Vietnam, and then putting them in a resort in Vietnam, and then what to do over those 7 days. Do you build up a whole team to do this once a year, or do you just have someone kind of working with external people?
So, and I guess you're choosing external people.
Yeah. A bit of both, but the mandate is essentially hire the minimum number of people internally and then work with people externally.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You trade cash for culture, basically. You want to keep your culture tight, and then the external contractors are more expensive, but we can keep our team smaller.
Yeah, you're not getting that drift around people that are very far from devs and open source and stuff as well.
Yeah, and then not only that, even the developers that we have internally, as you add in people, it's kind of like I don't know what they call the game where you whisper and then you whisper the whisper game or whatever. That's kind of how it feels. Maybe Ant and I spent a lot of time setting the culture, or maybe not even setting the culture. We just work, and then we get less face time, for better or worse, than with all the new hires. And so how do we make sure that they kind of get the culture from the source as much as we can, while we obviously can't do one-on-ones with 200 people?
Yeah, and I think you've talked about that it's writing. Is that the main mechanism?
Yeah, I think it changes throughout the journey. So now, this year, we kind of have to double in size, just even for support tickets. If we want to keep up our quality of support, we'll just need more people, which also means the engineers, they need to make sure that we've got great uptime, and the support burden for the engineers is a lot. And so in these cases, then, it's not enough just to write. Their onboarding experience needs to be phenomenal, because we can't just write ad hoc. They kind of need to go essentially through a training program to get all that history of what people implicitly soaked up over the past 4 years, the ones who have been with us, and they kind of get it and they got it implicitly. Now we have to be very explicit about, what is our culture, and kind of try to design. We haven't done it yet, and I think we need to spend some time but designing up what does a good onboarding experience mean in Supabase, in particular, as a remote company with an open source culture and very flat, designing that specifically around how we work is what we're spending time on, or what I'm spending time on.
Yeah, because I imagine some of it's quite hard to communicate. For instance, the obvious one for Supabase is the kind of humor. And I don't know, if that comes into culture or something, but I can imagine, it's very hard to explain, why is this funny? Why is this a good joke to put out? And this is very Supabase and this isn't, or
Yeah, I think as well, it's a funny one with culture. The best cultural onboarding happens before people join rather than after they join. So, ideally, what you've got is, people join Supabase because they know this is how we operate, rather than they join because they've got a good skill set, and then we say, by the way, can you act like this?
Yeah.
So hopefully they've seen our Twitter, seen our memes, all these sort of things. But as well, Stripe do this very well. I think they've got a kind of principles or culture page, and it's just 20 bullet points that are publicly available. Or maybe famously the Netflix onboarding doc, you very much know, they operate like high performers, like a sports team, these sort of things. And so you kind of know the culture, and you might gravitate towards it if that's what you like.
Yeah, and I think you also spoke about almost like making it like filtering out people, because I think it's very async culture, and like I think like one meeting per week for teams and stuff, and like some people wouldn't like that, but some people would love it. So
especially at the start, because when we were just 30 people, you might have almost no FaceTime with people. Now as we get bigger, actually, there's more and more Slack messages, there's more like interaction with people, but definitely at the start, if you were an extrovert, you wouldn't fit in. Like you'd be like, what's happening at Supabase? So we kind of just left people to work, and then they'd check in once a week, and then they'd go away for a week. And we had people leave literally because that was too async for them.
Yeah. But that must be like quite hard to kind of maintain, like as you're saying, like doubling, like to try to, because I know you've hired like a lot of ex-founders and stuff, but it's like probably quite hard to hire like, as like double the team with like primarily ex-founders and stuff like that.
Yeah. And when it gets down to those like two or three levels, you're kind of essentially, it's a bit like a train the trainer. Like we essentially trust that we've trained the early people enough that when they hire people, they will do a great job at training those people, or like culturally onboarding them, or like setting the culture within the company.
Mm-hmm. So I guess it's like if you kind of mess that up at the beginning, it's like you can't go back at it. And I think that's really the thing. Warren Buffett always says, like, tell me where I'm going to die so that I never go there, is kind of the thing. And I think, did this philosophy quite well at Supabase. And this is one of them. We said no to people who are great kind of on paper, but they might not fit the culture. And Ant is kind of our bar raiser. He's very good at it. And we were, I think set that kind of cultural bar as like the number one priority. And luckily, when we hit years like this year, which we've been really lucky to get this really high growth, then it makes a big difference. Yeah, I can completely imagine. And then kind of saying no, maybe using that as a segue. I know that like enterprise stuff is like very kind of top of mind.
Yeah. So this year we've kind of got actually two things happening. For a long time, we, the way we designed the business is like we took a spectrum of like developers, and it could go from like, say, a front end developer to all the way to a like hardcore database engineer. And the way we kind of thought about the developer experience was maybe like 25% along the spectrum of, like from front end developer. Like, so you should start knowing what a database is, and we can kind of educate people. We wouldn't try and make it just a front end tool. We can actually teach people how to use a database. But then what's happening, and especially this year, is like that spectrum of like developer has now turned into like vibe coder, builder, or something like that. So it's completely swung this way, and they actually are a completely different ICP, like ideal customer profile. And they're great, but they think differently and they use the product differently. And so we've got that one happening, which is kind of like almost like moving down market or across market. And then simultaneously, like we've got a lot of enterprise pool, and they have competing needs. They might want it for this like vibe coding type thing if they're an innovation lab because they want to get involved, or they just need, Postgres and they want to scale up and they want to use the Postgres service and they want to use it more traditionally. And so what we're having is all these competing priorities that we need to build for.
Scaling DevTools is sponsored by WorkOS. If things start going well, some of your customers are going to start asking for enterprise features. Things like audit trails, SSO, skim provisioning, role-based access control. These things are hard to build, and you could get stuck spending all your time doing that instead of actually making a great dev tool. That's why WorkOS exists. They help you with all of those enterprise features. And they're trusted by OpenAI, Vercel, and Perplexity. And for user management, the first 1 million monthly active users are completely free. Let's hear from Utpal from Digger.dev, a dev tool using WorkOS.
How it's designed is that you can start as early as day zero. But for us, it wasn't day zero. It was closer to when we first started monetizing because we didn't have a sign up at all. People could just anonymously use our tool. So it was a little later. It coincided with when we wanted to start monetizing and like we needed a nice enterprise feature set. If you're open source and you're doing enterprise first, the minute you think about monetization is when you should think about WorkOS. To be honest, if we do that again, I think I would think about that on day zero, to be honest, because like we should have done it on day zero, ideally. Anonymous usage should be permitted, but you should know who's using your tool. It should be optional, 100%. It should be opt-in, 100%. But it'd be great to have auth from day zero. You don't necessarily think about these enterprise features, but they still lead to revenue. And it kind of is a no-brainer in that sense. So yeah, I highly recommend.
And you kind of spoke about like, there might be like, okay, we want to give you $1 million, but we need to be able to log in this very specific esoteric way.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is like the more traditional developer cycle. Essentially, like if you think about most developer tools that you like or have liked in the past, I'm old enough that I've seen the cycle very many times now. Basically, you start off, it might be an open source tool, you build, and then you build a good community, probably founder-led usually, and really open source focused. And then you start making money, maybe you raise some money from VCs, and then once you become a bit bigger and more successful, you've got your community of champions, then a mid-market or enterprise come in, and specifically enterprise who have like very strong demands, but also very deep wallets, right? So they'll come in and they'll say something like, oh, I'll give you $1 million, but how we want it is this, and can you also sign these terms and make it this and deliver this by that date? And they always want changes. It doesn't matter what the product is really. They've got some bespoke requirements, and so the temptation, is just to say yes, because who says no to $1 million contract, especially when you're getting started. And so the problem with that is then the next enterprise comes, then the next one. And instead of having kind of one product that you're building for your entire community, you end up with, say, 10 or 20 different products that are kind of bifurcated. You've got an enterprise product for this person and another one for this one. And over time, that kind of cadence slows down. And, at the same time, they've got really high demands, and all of your focus, especially the founder, shifts towards the enterprise. And slowly, like you'll make a lot of money, but over time your money kind of, or your growth kind of tails off, and then you look back and you think, what happened? And you see, the community is kind of petered out. And then at that point, most of the time the dev tool has happened time and time again. I guess you could call it the enshittification of dev tools. It's quite a common term. But by that time, you kind of look back and you say, well, let's get back to our community, get back to our roots. Unfortunately, already by that point, it's kind of like the point of no return has already passed. And so you can't really go from top down to developers. You kind of have to always keep your focus on the developers. I think a really good example would be Stripe. They've done a great job here. And so that's kind of what I think about like the enterprise versus developer pool. You basically have to say no in those early stages to a lot of enterprise customers who might want you to make this kind of bespoke product. It's not to say that you will never build for them. So that's kind of where we're at now. We've been laying the foundations of how to build for enterprises while simultaneously serving all of our developer pool.
Yeah, and you referencing heavily on this great blog post that you have on your very hidden blog. That's like it's not really hidden, but I hadn't seen it until I was researching this. But you've written this blog post about like PLG versus enterprise sales, and one of the things that you mentioned was like, okay, on how to build was like you were talking about like, if it's like they want to log in a very specific way, you would maybe go like one abstraction level up, or so that they can they could do that, but also anyone could do any kind of customization that they want.
Yeah, so yeah, one really good technique here is essentially configuration over customization. So customization is what most of them want, and they'll ask for things like, tweak this, or can you add this login, and can you do it this way? And the way we think about it is more configuration. So if they ask for the login, you think about more, oh, well, how can we add 100 logins? And usually that means adding, say, the protocol for the login that they want. It's a really basic example. And so you add kind of all these knobs and things that you can turn on and off so that you can really have an almost infinitely adjustable product or platform. And then you make it really easy for them to turn things on and off as you kind of move through the gates from developer. You start, adding access to more configuration as you build out. A small example might be, like on the database side, most indie developers want something super cheap with a really cheap database, or like really cheap disks or something like that. They don't care so much about speed. Their core thing is price. And then as they move up and they start saying, oh, my website's getting traffic, I actually need read replicas, and then I need faster disks. And so these things you kind of gradually expose to the developer. And so their journey should be essentially kind of our tagline, build in a weekend, which is like small, easy, cheap, and then scale to millions, which is, enterprise ready. And you kind of can hopefully get them to insert at any point. And so we get to this point where we've built for enterprises and they can insert at this, at a much later part of the journey if they want to. But the platform should still feel seamless all the way from developer all the way up into enterprise.
And that's primarily from kind of, I guess, some set configurations, but then they can tweak it, and probably I know you have like the tiers, and probably those tiers come with sensible defaults themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So the way we do it at Supabase is, we set some defaults, knowing that like on the free plan, knowing that, that ICP, the way they think is more like, I want something quite cheap. And we have a lot of developers, 3 million developers or something like that today. And so we kind of know roughly what they want. It's kind of something cheap, and they don't care so much about performance. Well, they care about performance, but the thing that they really care about is like, how cheap is my database? Yeah. And then like quite soon they get into like, oh, I've actually got traffic, and you move up to a $25 tier, and you can start playing with those parameters, and you have different things that you care about at that stage. And so each one of these segments that we've got, from free customer to pro customer to team to enterprise, kind of fits a different ICP and the things that they value most. The configuration, we try to make it, that's more of a developer experience type thing. So in theory, they can do everything, and it's really about trying to make sure that it feels quite seamless. So this is more product design, but like at the start, we focused really on, like not many people know databases. And so to expose a lot of database features, we would have a lot of kind of UI and panels, and then SQL. And we actually leaned into SQL. A lot of people said, we should abstract away the SQL, but I've got a kind of opinion that it's good for people to learn a bit of SQL as well.
Yeah.
It's a kind of industry skill. Then we were really fortunate because AI came along, and actually we ended up stripping out a lot of the UI features, like the kind of niche UI features, because the discovery mechanism now is just the chat, like we've got an AI assistant. So it's actually simplifying the dashboard and increasing discovery just through this sort of interface. So yeah, it's really a product design decision around those configuration items as you grow.
Yeah, I think that should probably be a bit, remiss not to dive into the AI stuff as well. Like, I know that I think Lovable use Supabase by
Yeah,
default.
Bolt and Lovable. We've got quite a few of the platforms there. And this whole wave of the kind of vibe coding wave has been a big one for us. So that's where that spectrum has shifted. And yeah, it's kind of like a new way of building, I guess, where you kind of, just prompt your way through everything.
Yeah.
And we've had to make, a lot of changes just to cater to this audience. But, I don't see it going away. I think it's really important that we can kind of cater for both. I think both modes of operating are good. It's probably more around that journey, that I said, all the way from like build in a weekend. It's kind of a lot more like a prompt. But you should be able to escape that into the code, into the configuration, into GitHub as you grow and you start layering in kind of a maturity model. We've got this inside our docs where, as your product becomes more mature, you adopt more mature workflows as well.
Yeah, because I imagine that challenge is like so hard because it's like kind of this chasm of like, I'm in Lovable, I'm just like describing what I want. To go from there to like looking at like rows in the database and like seeing this panel that says like, oh, here's like SQL that I can write, and like here's I can write a query. What's a query?
Yeah.
It must be like quite challenging, like developer experience to.
Yeah. It's kind of I see it almost like a bit of a duty. Like I'm not sure yet whether you can, especially not today, you cannot just prompt your way through to a enterprise application. So it's almost a duty. It's not a question of like, should we kind of allow it? It's like, how can we make sure that, we give gradual exposure? So a really good way to do it from our point of view, and it's one of the first things we built, is the table editor. It kind of looks like Airtable inside Supabase.
Yeah.
And that's one of the first things
really
that you interact with. Yeah. And it's a bit like, an Excel spreadsheet. So people are kind of familiar with the pattern. But then right below it is a SQL editor. And for a long time, we've kind of thought about even collapsing these two. And so like you can kind of get a bit exposed, but I kind of like the separation and how to think at this stage where, you'll think in tables, and maybe the SQL editor might feel scary to a lot of people, but they can see it and then dip away, and then eventually they get exposed, usually because the community suggests, here's how to solve a thing. They might see it on Reddit or Stack Overflow or ChatGPT, something like that. And so, it's kind of, as I say, a bit of a duty where then we just keep exposing additional workflows. I know a lot of people find our UI really simple to use, and they do that even in production, but like we try to strongly suggest like that they don't do that, for example, that they move to code, that they start using GitHub, start using branching. You don't code just directly on your production. So a lot of it is actually just for that segment of developers, it's not all of them, but for that segment, teaching them the kind of standard patterns that a developer would use.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I definitely have been guilty when I've used Supabase of just like creating all my tables and stuff inside the browser.
It's easy, and like I understand it, and also we try to make sure that if you are going to do that, we'll try to make sure that like things, we can put some guardrails around it, and if anything goes wrong, we can make sure that you can recover any damage that you do.
I think you have like some kind of like, you're about to do a destructive rollbacks, lots of things really. That's so funny. And then something that you've written about is friction logs. And I thought it was like quite interesting that you felt this was like an important enough topic to write about, because you haven't written that many blog posts actually. So I was like very interested on like why it was such a
friction logs
thing.
They're not actually as big as as okay,
I made it.
I think We do them quite a lot, and I think they're one of the best ways, especially for people to give feedback, because it's a little bit hard. I think actually we did friction logs because sometimes I wrote about it because sometimes we get like our community to come and test features, and we'll say I'll give feedback, but actually it's quite hard for people to know. They'll just say, it's great. Yeah. But a friction log, for those who don't know, is basically you try out a feature, and as you're trying it out, you just log every step that you're doing, and especially the parts where you felt stuck. And so, whenever I'm saying to someone in the community, can you test out a feature? Ideally, it's a friction log that you can give to the team, and then the team can kind of step through and see their thinking. And everyone who joins Supabase does a dog fooding project, and they give a friction log as well.
Yeah, that's I think people should definitely check it out, because I think you've got like quite detailed ways that people should give feedback and like examples and stuff.
Yeah.
Just very good resource. Another thing that, going back to the article that I guess this episode's about that article.
Cool.
You also talked about like not killing your channels. Which I hadn't really heard before.
Yeah. Well, neither had I. So I kind of stole it from. I think I stole it from Duolingo, who stole it from Groupon. So at this point, it's just a meme.
But one of your co-founders previously was like a Groupon.
One of my in my first company, he worked in Groupon China actually. Yeah, and so I heard it though through Duolingo. I found the founder talking about it, I think, or actually, the reason I found it was because, to instill the culture in Supabase, we come up with a lot of principles, and I wanted to figure out how to kind of give this idea that, especially to marketing, there's kind of this pull between, especially for a developer community, there's this pull between like, let's market a lot, and developers who hate being marketed to. And so like, how do you like solve this tension? I'm very much a developer. I don't like being marketed to at all. And so, what I found was the Duolingo talking about this, not from a developer point of view, but they shared the Groupon story. And the Groupon story was, I don't know if anyone remembers Groupon now, but basically you would sign up and you'd get a deal a day into your inbox. And it was like the super cheap deal, and you'd purchase it, and then you'd check back the next day. And it was kind of cool because you could either get the deal or not get the deal. And then, very easy decision. What started happening was, the Groupon team said to the founder, like, this is going really well. If we do 2 emails a day, then surely like we'll get more business. And he was like, no. We've got to just keep it to 1 email a day. And they kept pestering him, and eventually he caved, and they did 2 emails a day, and you know what happened? It increased. And so they were like, this is phenomenal. This is exactly what we said. If we just, we've kind of doubled our business. What if we do 3 emails a day? And they kept doing this until eventually they hit like 6 emails a day. And at that point, people got really fucked off, and they unsubscribed. And that was their whole channel. Their channel was email. And once you kind of unsubscribe, you're not going to get a person to come back and try the product. And so this became like rule number 1 for Groupon from the CEO is like, don't kill the channel. And that tension that I talked about between developer and marketing is kind of the what I see as our channel. Our channel is our community, and anything we do to build friction amongst the community is going to eventually kill Supabase, essentially. So we've always got to keep a focus on the community and make sure that they know that that's our priority. There's a few ways to do it, but of course, like marketing is just one of those ones where it's, or dark patterns in the product, all of these things to make sure that you avoid doing those things around the community so that they know you're building for them, not for your bank account.
Yeah. So, and I guess it would be like, if it was like concrete example, like on social media, be like, you have a lot of followers, I think, for like DevTools, I think it's over 100,000,
Yeah.
right? If I guess if you were just like, you weren't posting like fun content, you were only ever posting like, I don't know, you started to be like, it's Black Friday, Supabase Day, like,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, just like constant, like,
Yeah, I don't even know if we kind of do a little bit of promotion of Supabase on there, I guess, but actually like with our Supabase account, it's like a bunch of memes, and we generally promote builder culture, like developer culture. That's kind of the thing that we care about, and really this is Ant that does a great job there. And you know, he's instilled that within the team to make sure that, you know, they focus on that. Yeah, it can be as little as like, you know, that journey from community all the way into enterprise, as well. Like, we know that as we grow, one of the founders has to focus on the developer community, and we have to be the voice of the developer, because, you know, what ends up happening is you'll start like looking at features or feature requests and attaching maybe like a revenue, like how much will this one earn us, and you prioritize based on these type of things. And so what you need is someone to say, well, I don't care that this will make us no revenue, or it costs us nothing, or there's only one person asking for it. What I care about is generally the community, and that has to come, I think, from a founder, much like the founder of Groupon, you know, probably should have put his foot down and say, well, I care about my users. I don't want to you know, inundate their inbox, you know. So you need someone with a kind of strong voice in the company to say, this is what matters to us.
Yeah. And I think that's something that you guys have been good at, in terms of like, you talked about like principles, and I think like when you're asked about open source, I think like, and people are talking about like strategy and business, I think like your first response that I've heard you say is usually just like, we are like very principled in this. And it's like, I feel like maybe that's the only thing that could withstand like
exactly. Yeah, like open source, of course, everyone asks the question, you know, will you relicense? But yeah, it's just that like our philosophy around DevTools is that they should be open source. That's just what we see should be the way of the world, and more things should be open source ideally. So yeah, I get the question all the time from everyone, from investors to community members, like, would we ever relicense? And it's not even a question of like, is it a good business practice? Are we worried? It's just that that's what we prefer. I would only want to work in an open source company with open source developers.
Yeah. That it makes total sense. And I think it's very good to just like, you've just been like so clear and vocal on that, and like had such a strong opinion, because like someone's like burning the boats a little bit. Like, you're just like, that's the direction.
Yeah. And we kind of like lose a ton of business to people who want to self-host. That's the thing that people point out. But I actually like those people. I'm happy that they're using Supabase, you know, like I don't want to tap into them. I want to make their developer experience great. If they want to choose our hosted platform, great. That's good. Everyone's worried that, you know, AWS will like steal our product and like do a Elastic or something like that. But I'm not so concerned about that, because our whole thing is like a nice experience, the end-to-end integrated solution, and it'd feel completely different, you know? So yeah, it's one of these ones like, you can't fork taste sort of thing, is like the idea that, you know, we'll just build a great experience, and if you want to self-host it, go for it. But ideally, the experience that we give you is so seamless that you choose us, because it's just not worth your time to self-host it.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, I think. And kind of, I want like kind of concrete question was like, I was doing contracting like a year or two ago, and they used Supabase. Actually, before, it was funny, like, because I was like using Supabase on my own projects a lot at that time, but they already were using it. But the funny thing was, it was a really small team, and like there was like quite startup-y, but they were part of this like public. It was a public company basically, and how do you think about like this kind of like adoption and kind of how you go from like this kind of, there's like use cases in like this team to then go like, okay, how do we get like everyone in the organization using Supabase?
Like an enterprise.
Yeah.
Everyone within an enterprise. Yeah, the way we're thinking about it at the moment is more like the good thing about having kind of 3 million developers using your platform is that you've got champions in every company. Yeah. And they're a little bit like your community as well. And generally they want to bring in the product to the org, and a lot of it's just kind of enabling them and like helping them to show that Supabase is great. So it can be things like we could run a hackathon internally, brown bag sessions, things like this within.
What's a brown bag session?
Just where like they come and like with their lunch bag and they listen as you do a presentation.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's called. Like, I guess you put your lunch in a brown bag.
And in the UK, they call it like lunch and learn.
Okay,
I think it's like, sounds like it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just like low friction stuff to make sure people know about it within the enterprise. And then, of course, like with it, if it's like really an enterprise, you need a bit more of a like pincer motion, which is like bottom up and top down, because probably these are all kind of sales things, but like the decision maker, the economic buyer, all of these type of profiles are different. And so, when you're dealing with SMBs, they're all in the same call. Whereas when it's like a much bigger enterprise, then you kind of need to know all of those people, and they should know about Supabase before they even get to a point of deciding that whether it's good or not.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think like coming towards the end, last thing I wanted to ask you is like what stuff you're excited about at the moment.
Yeah, we've got I don't know when's this podcast
well, we could try and get it out. Do you want to bring it out sooner or later?
Well, yeah, if it comes out in the next week,
okay,
then we have a launch week from July 14th, which will drop 5 major features, and they're pretty cool. Some of the features. I'm also super excited about a new one that we announced, which is Multigres. So
very cool name.
Yeah, it's cool, right? I talked to a customer, actually, a big customer, and they were like, that's such a shit name. Like, you should like think about renaming that. And I was like, no.
Not a Marvel fan, I guess.
Well, exactly. That's the idea that it gets across. Also, funnily enough, all the .com and everything was available. So I was like, yeah. So there's no way we're changing the name. No. But Multigres is cool. It's basically the creator of Vitess, which is a tool that was developed in YouTube.
Yeah.
He, as they started scaling it was MySQL in YouTube. And so as they started scaling up, they had to build this tool that would help them to scale, and they added a lot of sharding and the high availability tooling. And so the creator of that eventually spun out and created a business around it. And then he wanted to do it for Postgres. And he came to us a couple of weeks ago and just said, I'd love to do this at Supabase. And so we'll essentially be building out the kind of Vitess for Postgres offering over the next year. And we'll add that to the platform, which will be pretty cool.
Wow. And I guess that's going to help a lot with the enterprise stuff as well.
Yeah, and our existing customers as well, not just enterprise. Actually, we've got a lot of AI companies who are scaling up, and they might even be manually sharding themselves. So this kind of makes it a bit more seamless, and makes it really easy. And of course, it'll all be open source if people want to self-host it as well. So that's always how I think, right?
Yeah, super cool. Do you think you would have I don't know why, like I thought on one of the interviews you were talking about how like the name Supabase back in the day. And you were like, I was so cringe when everyone's like with the Nicki Minaj meme.
Yeah, exactly. I actually I really dislike the name Supabase. The one benefit of Supabase, because it's like SUPAB, but there's no other mentions on the internet other than our company. So anytime I get a ping on Supabase, I can read it and I know it's about us.
So is this really like an ant? Is this like an ant thing?
The Multigres or the
Supabase?
Supabase? No. Like we came up with it like as a bit of a joke, but it went too far too fast, so we couldn't rename it.
Do you think you would have named it Multigres if?
Well, no, Multigres makes sense because like the idea of this particular tool is that you end up running like a limitless number of nodes at one time. So it's kind of like that one makes sense. But I didn't think at the start that we'd actually build out. I knew we'd have to build out a lot of the scalability options. And actually, we kind of have many tongs in the fire for this one. We have as well OriolDB, which is kind of replaces the storage engine for Postgres. And that's one way of solving the kind of scalability requirements for enterprise. And it also is much faster. It's about 5 times faster than the default storage engine. We also are working on like an iceberg initiative, so with the S3 team actually at AWS, where we essentially can like seamlessly offload data between the database and S3, and in this format called iceberg. And you can kind of put, an infinite amount of data inside iceberg as well. It's a columnar storage. And then this third one is Multigres, which allows you to run this limitless number of nodes. And so in many ways, we're just kind of being opinionated about being unopinionated about choosing your journey on how you want to operate your data. And we'll try and make that whole experience seamless like we have it, for the first 5 years. And so now like my product focus is largely around these 3 areas of growth.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. It's like the build in a weekend, scale to millions, like, or billions. I don't know if you're
hopefully it'll be billions soon.
Yeah.
Like we actually once put billions, but I don't know if we've got anyone in our we've got an auth product, and so we know people who have like signups, but we don't yet have anyone running an app with 1 billion customers.
There's probably not that many, are there? Like
I don't know many.
Less than 100.
So we actually put billions, and then we thought, no, that's too much. Let's make it millions. And then on the day that we actually can scale to 1 billion users, or we have an app that has 1 billion, we'll change it to scale to billions.
Look, you can do some big like video of you like changing it from M to B. Very cool. Okay, I think that's towards the end. So Paul, thank you so much. I wanted to interview you for ages. I've kind of been like talking to you for years and following Supabase and using Supabase. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for being in the community for so long, and glad we could do this in person.
Amazing.